Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from PJ Media dated September 22nd. It says, here's how sinister the deep state Blob censorship operation really is. And if you heard it called Blob, you're about to see the name that called it the Blob. It's right here. It's Mike Benz, a great follow on X. A lot of the stuff he says sounds like conspiracy theories until you realize it's all true. And he worked for Trump, and it says right here. But before I go off, let's just get into it. It says, Americans are subsidizing their silence. The man who uttered these words, or those words, is Mike Benz, a former U.S. State Department boss who now strenuously advocates for digital freedom before the Blob, as he calls the deep state, completely controls every aspect of American life with its censorship industrial complex. That complex doesn't exist as an entity, but does in reality. Scrolling a little too far. It says the censorship mechanisms we now see on a daily basis in our Google searches, wildly one-sided news coverage, and the consolidation of speech codes into full-fledged and sometimes violent censorship on campuses across the nation are an outgrowth of U.S. State Department censorship programs enacted in 2016 after a new bubble of worldwide populism erupted. Gee, what happened in 2016 that would have led to that? I don't know. As it marked the point when all of the mechanisms that the U.S. employed against our enemies were turned on the American people. As Benz told podcaster Sean Ryan, see the video below, that the domestic censorship campaign was constructed when the government censorship crowd decided that free people had chosen poorly with their votes. Yes, because there were a bunch of elites that just decided you didn't pick the right guy for president or the right person, so we have to censor you now. We're going to tell you what you should and should not be thinking and saying. So it says here, the advent of populism really started in 2016 with the events of the Philippines election, the events of Brexit. I don't know about the Philippines election. I remember Brexit. The events of Donald Trump's election, followed in short succession by Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, Matteo Salvini in Italy, Marine Le Pen's rise in France, Vox Party's rise in Spain, AfD's rise in Germany. Suddenly, the people had to be stopped and wrongthink had to be corrected. And the U.S. State Department, CIA, and other alphabet agencies specializing in disinformation were put into the service of changing the minds of the American and other Western people. Benz has been boldly telling the story about the censorship campaign at his Foundation for Freedom. He's been featured on many right-leaning programs, mainly because the right is currently the victim of those far-reaching speech attacks. It's similar to the efforts the FBI made with its COINTELPRO spying, and worse, on America's far left in the 1970s. Yeah, the 1970s were not exactly a peaceful time in the country, if you know anything about it. It says, but in this interview, he's given the time nearly 3 hours. I probably do need to listen to that because it just sounds interesting, to explain the construction of the apparatus that American taxpayers paid for and are victimized by. By 2018, Ben said, this apparatus was coming into its own. It says, before 2016, you could not get a full-time job getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to censor what other people say on the internet. The content moderation jobs were about getting rid of spam, and that phrase of words there, we'll call it cheese pizza, and a little bit of compliance for other countries that had hate speech laws, but it has become an industry. It has become a career track, and it is supplanting other career tracks that used to be soft power influence jobs. The censorship industrial complex is now beginning to get baked into the university system for those who want to be diplomats and spooks. Says if you wanted to work, you know that at the heart of the action a generation ago, you'd go to Georgetown and you would study political science or international relations. Well, with this new advent of disinformation studies, and it's folded under so many different programs it'll make your head spin, the communication departments have this, the applied physics departments have this, for the AI censorship software component. That was a hell of a sentence. So the sociology departments have this, the psychology departments have this, the computer science partner programs at universities have this, the linguistics programs have this. So this broad field of disinformation studies is now an advanced track golden ticket to be at the heart of the action in terms of high-level, high-impact foreign policy blob positions, because it doesn't just put you at the heart of Washington and its own secular interest, it puts you right at the heart of a big government, big business, and big tech. And the people began to understand what was going on. We saw all the chicanery of the 2020 election. No signature matches were required in some states. Universal mail-out ballots became a key feature, and bipartisan election laws were thrown out due to COVID fears. High community note showing up on this video now, or a wiki note, I should say, because I mentioned that special word called COVID. It says there were broken down machines. Blackouts of state voting counting happened right in front of our eyes. No reasonable person would consider these anomalies and not wonder if something nefarious was going on. It's why when the leader from CISA, a newish agency that took a leadership role in the censorious information operation against the American people, sounded downright Orwellian when he proclaimed that the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. Yes, and I remember hearing that and going, "You're dumb." And yeah, it says that was nonsense and the American people knew it. Yes, we did. It says now the censorship folks are predicting, or promising, a cyber attack on Election Day in America, yet another reason to bank your vote. We're surrounded by captured corporations whose interest, because of government influence, is to censor the truth. Because the Washington Post owner has a huge deal with the CIA. Yep, they sure does. I remember hearing about that. It says Jeff Bezos' Amazon is beholden to government agencies because of its cloud service contracts. Google faces U.S. and EU pressure to censor searches. Why are we listening to the EU? Can you just go away? Like, you're not our problem? Says Twitter 1.0 was crawling with former spooks and feds and was on weekly calls with censorious FBI agents like Elvis Chan. Ben says Facebook was threatened by the U.S. government with a $60 billion ad loss if Mark Zuckerberg didn't play ball with government censors, and Elon Musk is being actively targeted by the U.S. government, which is leaning on the government of Brazil because Musk isn't doing the bidding of the censorship comrades. There's a word for this, folks, with the government leaning on corporations to censor people and to do what the government wants. Go look it up. It's not a good word. It says Ben's endgame. He said, I want free speech on the internet, and I want Americans to be able to determine our own elections and our own social and cultural and political discourse, and I don't want to be caught in a proxy war any longer between this foreign-facing department of dirty tricks and our domestic speech at home. It says what twice. What I'm getting at here is I think what needs to be offered to people who are God, he must be stuttering as they're typing this, and I get the accuracy in transcribing it, but like take out the stutter parts, or is it not considered a direct quote if you do that? But anyway, I'm going to start over this. What I'm getting at here is what I think needs to be offered to people who mean well on both sides of the political aisle. I'm not just talking about Republicans, although they happen to be predominantly the ones who have taken this issue up, is you have to be able to articulate a firewall between the capacity to do this in other countries and its blowback on American citizens here. The good news is that the very entities the censorship industrial complex targeted and tried to destroy, such as alternative news sources like PJ Media, began to tell the story and call out the information operation for what it was, the silencing of the American people for wrongthink. We've seen it as a political operation because that's been the result, but Benz believes it's more about conformance. He opines that if Donald Trump embraced censorship and endless wars, the Blob would love him, and that's probably true. That's why the Cheney family actively supports Kamala Harris, to give you a real-world example. It says House Republicans have begun to strip away the program's facades, but it will take a lot more action by the American people to stop it. Ben says Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, I guess, has provided a huge wedge against the Blob. It's why that same Blob is going after Musk's SpaceX and Starlink businesses. Musk's businesses have many government contracts and he's angering his customers. There's more to say about this interview, and I will in the coming days, says the author, and this is Mike Benz right here on the right. And I guess they do have it embedded here. I'll have to come back to this and listen to that. And then it's just stuff about PJ Media and supporting them. Okay, so yeah, I mean, listen, if you've seen Mike Benz's stuff, listen to what he has to say, because dude knows what he's talking about when it comes to this stuff and how everything is intertwined. So that's what I'm going to stay there, and I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.